Dillian the Body Snatcher right here. It's a champ. Big up to Sporting Icon. Subscribe. Otherwise, I might pay you guys a visit.
Right, firstly, a very, very happy new year to each and every one of you. Now, I stumbled across this article that was printed a couple of hours ago, where World Boxing News, they're talking about the knock-on effect if the mediation between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury falls apart. Where does it leave Deontay Wilder? So we're going to be talking about that as this video goes on. So make sure that you keep on watching, and of course make sure you are subscribed as well. Now, with this whole case, there's so many different angles to look at. I mean, first and foremost, I'm not a lawyer. I've got nothing to do with the law whatsoever. But I think I have a little bit of common sense about me, where Tyson Fury wouldn't have walked away from the contracted third fight with Deontay Wilder unless he had the green light from his team. His team being not just Bob Arum, who of course is a former lawyer, not just MTK, who have their own legal representatives and everything like that as well, but he will have his own legal team who went through the contract and went, yeah, you're okay to walk away. Because Fury, the last thing in the world he wants to do is get sued. It doesn't matter how you look at it. He knows Wilder for him is an easy fight. So he's not going to do that, is he? Unless he's pretty confident he can. Now, here's the thing. I don't think that Tyson Fury walked away because he doesn't want the third fight with Deontay Wilder, because he's not confident of beating Deontay Wilder. He finds Wilder a very, very easy fight. After 2.5, 3 years out of the ring, fighting two lesser opposition, should we call them, Mr. Tyson Fury, the second best cruiserweight from Albania, and Francisco Pianeta, a glorified journeyman. Then he goes over to America, Los Angeles, and defeats Deontay Wilder. And then gets screwed to a points draw. Okay? In the rematch, he comprehensively battered him. So, do we need to see a third fight? The answer is no. Of course, some people will. I mean, obviously, I'm not speaking for everybody, but I think the majority of people not interested. We know who the better man is, and it's Tyson Fury. Wilder is not even on the same level. In fact, he's not even close to a Tyson Fury. Stylistically, Fury is wrong in every aspect for Deontay Wilder. Okay, so there's that part. But the thing is, Wilder was offered numerous dates. Fury said this. Bob Arum said this. In fact, I interviewed Bob Arum in the early part of, I think it was about May, something like that. And I was asking him about the conspiracies, you know, the gloves and the tapped water and all that kind of stuff. And he didn't believe any of it. He said, it's so far gone that how can it even be true? And he's absolutely correct. But of course, what did take him by surprise as well is the fact that since me and him spoke, Wilder himself has come out and given validity to all these claims. I mean, never in the history of boxing, probably in sport, have so many excuses come out. If there's one excuse come out, okay, cool, you can look at that one and go, okay, he really believes in that one thing. Okay, whether we believe it's true or not is kind of irrelevant, but it's one thing, okay? Maybe there was something wrong in camp, maybe whatever it may be. But to come out with a whole catalogue of excuses makes it 10 times worse than what it ever needed to be. Never have we seen a boxer come out with so many excuses. I mean, Vasyl Lomachenko come out and said the other week there that he believes that the judges were paid off to give Teofimo Lopez the win. Now, whether you side with Lomachenko or whether you don't, that's one excuse. That's one. It's bad enough to give one. Whether it's true or whether it's not, a boxer really should kind of keep themselves to themselves, try and get their rematch, get the win, and then say afterwards if there was some kind of excuse. Like Anthony Joshua, for example, he gave no excuses. Dillian White with Povetkin gave no excuses. So why is Wilder coming out with a whole catalogue of them? So he's made it 10 times worse. So when it comes to the mediation and giving a third fight to Deontay Wilder, people can say, but the pandemic hit. Okay, but the pandemic, it certainly disrupted, no doubt about it. But again, let's be brutally honest. Boxing has been back for a little while now. Some with crowds lately, which is cool. Some without crowds. So they could get the fight on. Because the first fight and the second fight, not exactly packed to the rafters, was it? For capacity crowd. The pay-per-view numbers, not exactly breaking records, now was it? The third fight, after we see what Tyson Fury done, people are not that interested. Now, we could say, but Maybe it's all one big conspiracy set up between Fury and Deontay Wilder to try and build hype for the third fight, and that will generate more numbers, yada, yada, yada. Hey, let's not totally rule it out, okay? But as far as crowd that's concerned, I don't think people are going to be that interested. Some people will be, but most of those who are interested are, for the most part, not all, but for the most part, are Deontay Wilder fans who don't go to his fights anyway. They probably don't even buy the pay-per-view. They probably just get like a group of friends around and all put in a couple of bucks each, or maybe illegally stream it, I don't know. But they're not exactly boots to the wall kind of fans, are they? They don't go out and support. They just don't. They use Wilder as a way to generate views, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, that is what it is. But if you're Tyson Fury, if you're being accused of glove tampering and all these other kind of things, spike water and all that kind of stuff, saying how you're a natural cheat because you're a gypsy and many, many other things, would you want to give Wilder another payday? You wouldn't. You just wouldn't, would you? You'd be like, no, okay. I offered you plenty of dates and you turned down. And according to Bob Arum, it was Team Wilder who put in the expiry date. We'll go back onto the pandemic. Okay, so the pandemic hit, it certainly knocked everything off. And the rematch was supposed to have happened in, was it late June or early July, something like that? So quite clearly, they've extended it another few months. And they still couldn't get the fight over the line. They could have done it behind closed doors. For me, it would have made not too much difference financially. I'm sure, don't get me wrong, it would have made some difference, of course. But people are not that interested in it, so it was never going to do those kind of numbers. So they could have just done it behind closed doors, but Wilder, he wasn't ready. Fox Sports didn't want to put it on because it was going to clash with some football games or whatever else it may be. Okay, so we're going to put the whole boxing world on hold while you wait for a full capacity crowd. That's not how it works. But anyway, going back on to Deontay Wilder and what happens if this whole mediation fails, where does he go? Well, there's still plenty of big fights out there for him. There's a lot of fights that you and I would love to watch him in with. For me, I would love to see him fight Dillian Whyte. I've been saying it for the past couple of years. People can say, yeah, but Dillian Whyte, he just come off of a loss to Povetkin. Yes, but Wilder just lost his last fight too. He's the one who seems mentally destroyed, not Dillian Whyte. The reason why the rematch with Povetkin and Whyte hasn't happened is because Povetkin got hospitalised, didn't he? Due to having the virus. He's not going to be ready for said rematch, okay? The rematch was supposed to have happened in early part of November, then it was changed to January the 30th, now it's going to be changed to whatever it's going to be changed to, okay? So that's not in part with Dillian, but he's still trying to get that fight back. But he dominated Povetkin. Nobody else has ever handled Povetkin the way that Dillian Whyte did, but he got caught. Heavyweight boxing. Not just heavyweight specifically, but heavyweight boxing, one punch, just put your lights out. And that's what happened. That never happened with Wilder. He got battered from the get-go, where Fury just put it on him and absolutely annihilated him. So it's going to be difficult for Wilder to get back in the ring with somebody who's a live opponent. Because it's cherry pick, and again, let's be brutally honest, Fury was a cherry pick. And it went badly, badly wrong. And Fury's only going to get better, not worse. Wilder has been on the decline for quite some time. At best, he's been flatlining for the past few years. He's the only guy that I know who's happy to give up round after round after round, and then at some point, bang, get the win. That's not entertaining for me. Don't get me wrong, highlight reel knockouts, of course. But that is not what gets you over with the fans. Him being loud and brash and this, that, and the other doesn't work. It really doesn't work. But a third fight not happening with Fury, where does it leave him? As I said, there are some good fights out there for him. As I said, with Dillian Whyte. Andy Ruiz Jr. would be a decent payday for him. People would love to see that fight. But by the looks of it, Andy Ruiz Jr., he's going to be fighting Chris Arreola. It's an all-Mexican clash. I can understand that one. It may do some pretty good numbers, being that's an all-Mexican clash. But I can honestly see Wilder fighting a Charles Martin or some obscure European, maybe a Helenius, maybe, although again, I'm hearing that Robert Helenius has agreed to have the rematch with Adam Kalnaki and whatever else, okay? But for me, I don't expect him to be fighting, say, people who's been mentioned in Wilder's name, like Dillian Whyte, like Alexander Usyk and that, for example. I don't see that happening. Honestly, I don't. I'd love to be wrong, and I'd love Wilder to come back and have a big fight. Of course I would. There's plenty of fights for him. And a little bit down the line, have that third fight with Fury or get a fight with Anthony Joshua, whatever it may be. But he does need to have a rebuilding process. The excuses have hurt him so much, have hurt his credibility. Those who have been supporting Wilder for even just a little bit amount of time, when he lost, went, okay, cool, he lost, let's see what happens in the third fight, we're still going to support him, he's still our guy, yada, yada, yada. But when he fired Mark Breland, that was probably a catalyst for a lot of people. It certainly was for me. Not just firing him, but the way that he threw Mark Breland under the bus. That hurt his credibility, in my opinion. The way that he's accused Tyson Fury of doing something that was virtually impossible with the gloves. By insinuating that the referee was in on the act. Mark Breland was in on the act. The Nevada State Athletic Commission was in on the act. All these things transpired, his water got spiked, and all these kind of things have hurt his credibility. His fan base have let him down when it comes to this. They know how temperamental Wilder is. They know that Wilder is the kind of guy who does make excuses. He's made a career of making excuses. He's made a career out of avoiding the big fights out there. I mean, how do you go 44 fights and only fight 2 credible opponents? 2 in 44 fights. Luis Ortiz, again, how good was Luis Ortiz? Who's he beat? Look at his resume. And then, of course, Tyson Fury. But again, we can question that one because Tyson Fury, as John Fury said, most people would have beaten Tyson in that first fight. Tyson wasn't ready. He wasn't conditioned to be in a world title fight, to be fighting one of the best heavyweights out there. But that shows you the limitations of Wilder, doesn't it? So that's why, for me, the third fight, it's a non-starter for me. I understand some people want to see it. Some people are just sadistic. They want to see Fury bounce him up and down to canvas again. But as I said earlier, if you were Fury, would you want to give this guy another payday? You wouldn't, would you? You just wouldn't. What Wilder was better off doing is keeping quiet. So for me, is Wilder out in the freezer? He is, unless he steps up again. Is he going to step up again? I'm not too sure. But as I said, the credibility has just fallen out the backside. It really has. He's lost a lot of fans over this one. Those who were willing to stick by him are probably not anymore. It doesn't help when you're twerking and that as well, does it? But hey, that is what it is. But for me, I'd like to see him take on Dillian Whyte, a Alexander Usyk, a Andy Ruiz Jr., maybe a Joe Joyce. Why not? But anyway, listen, that's my thoughts. Wilder, he will be in the freezer if he comes back and fights somebody that nobody gives a damn about, which is probably going to be the case. Look at his track record. I'm not being horrible, but look at his track record. So I think we know where it is that he's going to go next. And it's probably going to be, the best you can hope for is a Charles Martin, to be brutally honest with you. But anyway, that's my thoughts on this whole situation. Of course, you drop me yours in the comment section below. I hope you all enjoy your New Year's Eve. And of course, New Year, hopefully 2021 is going to be a far improvement on 2020. I mean, it couldn't be too much worse, could it? Let's hope not. Anyway, drop your thoughts below, click thumbs up, and of course, subscribe. And I'll catch you all on the next video.